These are just a few images I put together that are all contemporary work, contemporary artists working slightly pretty different. And I thought I would just introduce some ideas that you might think about when you're considering the evaluation of art. And the topics about the evaluation of art can go much wider than these, but these are just some just to stimulate some ideas. This is a work by Neo Rausch. He's a German painter, and his work seems to combine some images that have a storybook sort of flavor to them, but they also seem to be from a kind of nationalistic kind of illustrational style, and they're very mysterious. Like when you look at some of these images, what's going on? You know, it's a little bit of dark humor. You're not sure what's going to take place over the next couple of minutes. But there's this collaged effect, not literally a collage, not pasted paper into the picture, but there are these different kinds of images that seem to come from different situations or sources that are then combined in this one large, oftentimes, painting. And so when I'm thinking about the evaluation of art, when I look at a Neo Rausch, it seems to have to do with the subject, you know, that there's this kind of mystery and a riddle that's being presented. And these are things that I consider to be important in his language. And so there's something to consider when we're looking at Neo. This is another artist by the name of Paula Rego. She's a Portuguese artist, and she's really interesting in that she works with a couple of different mediums, and oftentimes there are flavors of fairy tale mixed with reality in her pictures. And I think this is a good example where that's happening. This is a print. She's also a printmaker as well as a painter. And what she does is she makes these puppets out of paper mache and then uses them as her subjects to draw from, in addition to using the live model. So that there's, again, an element of sort of dark humor in her work, but there's also a bit of a fairy tale-ish reference. You know, like these small little creatures in the foreground, and then these children holding hands that seem kind of almost in a trance. There's a playfulness about her work. And so when I think of Paula Rego's work and thinking about some of the evaluative aspects, you know, part of it might be the playfulness, but the drawing and the medium, the fact that she's using printmaking in such a way, does that enter the picture in terms of how I determine the work, how I consider and evaluate? This is another work in black and white, but it's an ink drawing, and it's something that's done from observation as opposed to the previous picture, which seems kind of a combination of things. Stanley Lewis is an artist who works with the landscape, and this is a great example of looking out the window. Can you see the sash of the window? Looking out into the landscape. So this is another work by Stanley Lewis. Looking at familiar observations that certainly are unique to his situation, that he's out in this particular field, looking at this roadway and this fence, but that it's also something that we might imagine ourselves doing. And the way that he's able to just tell about his looking, making marks that connect with really specific points of observation, in my mind, when I consider evaluating art and the art of Stanley Lewis's, there's something about his measure of looking that tells me about the experience of the picture. It becomes an important facet for the experience of the picture. The last image, so this is just a smattering of images, another painting, this time by an artist by the name of Deborah Kahn. And there's some different things happening in this picture compared to the previous. One is that it's more abstracted. You can make out that there are images of figures. It looks like maybe a small family grouping. It's a little bit ambiguous. But the forms are abstracted, so they're moved away from an exact replication of reality, and they become something that is more about form and color. And so that's another thing, too, I thought I would suggest, is to consider the importance of maybe color as you're looking at a work of art, is how the artist has handled color or other things like line or shape. Are these things something that we consider when we evaluate a work of art. Some other things might be the time spent on a work of art. Is that important for us? As we're looking at some things that have to do with different media, is it something that's more imaginative or more documentary in style? These are some concepts that we'll be building on in different ways, but certainly the evaluation of art can come from a personal taste as well. So I hope these things get some ideas going, and I look forward to reading your responses.